Start.
Whenever you're ready. All right, good evening and welcome to the Services Committee meeting. It is March 6, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Ayer?
Yes,
Mayor
here.
St. John?
Here.
Mr. Rumney?
Here.
Mr. Capel is absent as of right now.
All right, we did have a meeting on February 21st, 2024, looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Grumney,
Right? It doesn't.
Second.
second by Ms. Dreher. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Rumney?
Yes.
Mr. Ayer?
Yes.
Mayor St. John?
Yes.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Let the record reflect Mr. Capel is here.
Oh, and out of breath.
I'll hand the gavel, the baton, and the torch over to you, sir.
Appreciate it. Mr. Capel
Unless you would
is
like me to
out of
keep
shape.
running.
Yeah, you're okay.
We're on to the visitors section.
Okay. Do we have any visitors? Hey, how are you doing? Good. Good. Gonna move on to new and unfinished business. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to speak?
I think
Bernie?
did you want to address the?
The service committee?
Well, first, I'd like to hear kind of what's going on first, unless I can ask the question first. Whatever goes, what's the right order?
So, the correct order is to do the visitors first.
Did you get a copy of the agenda? Okay,
Uh,
why don't you go ahead and ask your question and start there.
Yeah.
After the,
Yeah, if you could come up to the podium, give your name and address. I don't often get visitors in this committee, so super excited, yeah.
Bernie Boyd, I live in Fox Street, Sylvania, Ohio, 43074. My question for today would be, has there been any thought about a intersection or a crosswalk at the south side of GRE along Heartland Meadows? Over the last several years, we've been bringing our kids to school, either to walk or take our bikes or drive. And it's been getting trickier to get into the school itself, as there is no proper way of getting in there. There's no sidewalk path other than go all the way to the intersection with Kroger and then walking around, or cutting through the grass, which is fine. But when you're on a bike, you essentially have to stay on the road and go into oncoming traffic. So we have a combination of kids crossing the street wherever they can, pedestrians walking in wherever they can, and cyclists going in oncoming traffic. So it's been a bit concerning. I've made the previous principal aware. She made a little path back there and it worked. It was temporary. Looking to see if there's anything that I can do or the city can do about studying this topic.
Can you say again what the specific location was that you're asking about crossing Heartland?
It's the south side of GR, General Rosecrans Elementary, and Heartland, that intersection where the car pickup and drop off area is. It's a busy intersection, not just for cars getting in and out, it's also trying to go across. There have been plenty of times where it's been stagnant and cars dart across to get to Kroger or wherever it is.
Good point. Handy that the mayor has his laptop up. Yes.
I was just gonna say, so Mr. Coy and the city planner have been communicating on this issue, because I said, well, we do have a crossing as part of the 2024 street program. We shared that information with him. That's the other side of the school. So this is not an area that we had talked about. So appreciate him bringing this in front of the group. So.
Right. So we're right there.
It's the intersection of Millstone, or are you saying a mid-block crossing at the school exit? The school drive.
Exit in that general area where it's really where the school entrance and exit is the worst case. I think the next street south of that, is that Millstone?
Millstone,
Yeah, it starts there.
because yeah, that's directly across from Southworth Drive, the condos, and then that's kind of a more typical
Yeah.
intersection. It is funny. It says school crossing painted, but there's no crosswalk.
Right. I was gonna say, there's no curb cut there. We're looking at that. So it's
Okay.
interesting. Yep.
So that's something that we can look at and follow up on at some point, see. Okay. No, thank you, Bernie, for bringing that to our attention. I hadn't had anybody bring that up before, so I know we were looking at potential crossings on the other side of GRE across, Oh, what road is that? Yeah,
Fairland, yeah.
Fairland.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll follow up. Yeah, thank you, Brian. I appreciate
Thanks.
it. Yeah, that's a good call out. All right, and on to new and unfinished business. So we've got the Magnolia Park and Legacy Trail connection first up. Is that you, Dan, or is it Daryl?
Nope, that's Dan. I did want to know, we did turn the screens off here. They were acting up during the last meeting, so hopefully you'll be able to view the presentation. Yeah, pull that up from there. We do, I think, also have it in the packet. Yeah, okay.
Do you mind if I have the clicker? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this on? It is now. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion. The administrator had me give the presentation without benefit of visual aids at the last meeting, and I was all flustered. So hope I'll do a little better with this one. So I just wanted to Mr. Hennessy asked me to give this presentation, sort of an update. I had finally gotten a submittal from Pulte Homes consultant late last week to do a final connection of Legacy Trails Magnolia Park, and that kind of generated this idea of updating you all on what's going on. And so I've got the four. And this is a very, very informal presentation. You'll see my handwriting on it. There's some typing, some handwriting, but in that vein, feel free to interrupt me with questions as we go along. Don't think you have to hold them. But for the four W's here, it's Y, and that's to provide an update on the trails in the area, and what is focus on connectivity, drainage, i.e. wetlands and floodplains, and keeping things dry, BMPs being best management practices and the materials used to accomplish that. When is an approximate schedule on getting some of this work accomplished? And the wondering, that's the questions and answers. As I said, please interrupt me as we go. Specifically, we'll talk about the Legacy Trail. You'll see exactly what that is here in a few minutes. Magnolia Park subdivision, to some degree, Price Ponds as well, and connecting those together. And again, questions and answers. So first we'll start with the Legacy Trail. That's my little cute transparent overlay behind that there. This is Alex and Mr. Hennessy and I met with Pulte Homes and kind of walked the Legacy Trail. It is kind of hard to tell from this, but it connects from Millstone, actually south of Millstone, and goes on through those woods, through Price Ponds, and connects up into Lord Fairland. Oh.
Yeah, that one. Just look it up.
I did. I don't think I hit anything. Oh.
On those exhibits, just, I don't know if you picked up on it, north is to the right. BWI would be.
Yeah, that's correct.
Top right.
Where those purple lines are Fairland. So it goes behind the houses on Fairland on the south side of the road. So you're right, north is to the
That's
right.
Magnolia Park to the left of the school on the right. Upper right is the school, to left is Magnolia Park.
Right is Magnolia Park and left is Price Pond.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, I got you.
That's Weatherby at the top of the screen. Fairland is sort of toward the middle there. It's the whole point here is to show that we walked the site, and I'll show you some pictures of where we walked, and also to show that big blue blob in the middle is an area where it's very poorly drained, and you'll see some evidence of that in the pictures that we took when we were walking. I was using a cane at the time, so Alex was taking pictures and running a wheel. I think Daryl was doing some of that as well while I was hobbling along through the mud. Oops. And dang. So here's some of the pictures, which is kind of hard to see at that scale, but you can see some of the water down, particularly in the bottom slides there. This started the top left is at Millstone as we're progressing along, probably every few hundred feet, we snap some pictures, primarily to indicate, and they're numbered on that previous slide. Those numbers indicate the locations of the picture, so we know where to put pipes. So we would, I'll show you toward the end of this, how we'll build up the trail to keep it dry, how they will build up the trail to keep it dry. And you can see it gets really bad here. It's basically a canal along a portion of that. That's partly because they had initially cut in a swath to put the gravel down as a base to build the trail up on, but still it's a lot of water out there that it sat in that area. So they could not, and rightly so, did not build the trail during that period of time because it just would not have held up. The pavement would not subsist in those conditions. It would have been a bad conditions in order to build that trail. And so they had not built it yet, even though it should have been built by now. So they've held up on that. They're currently building it through a different mechanism than what they would have done initially. I'm going to stand up and show this to you because I can see it from where I am. Traditionally, the way you build a trail, this is a cross section, you just cut through the ground. And ignore this bottom one. This is an at-grade installation. This is the top of the ground here. You cut down 8 to 12 inches, put gravel on the ground, compact it, and then build your layers of asphalt into that. And the water would hopefully run across the top of that swale from high side to the low side, get to where it needs to go. Where there's just too much water to make that practical. So what in the water, it's just too wet out there for that. It'd be too spongy, it wouldn't work. So what they propose to do is to compact this ground underneath, maybe put some gravel underneath of it. This blue line is a small pipe, 4-inch diameter, polyethylene pipe, and it's tapered on the side so that it won't get crushed as easily. And they put the gravel on top of that, build up around it, so that it stays up and stays dry. They still are able to compact over top of that pipe and let this water flow from one side to the other and still have a stable subsistence for this which is what's important to maintain the stability of the pavement, so it'll last longer and actually work. So that's what they're doing out there right now. And that, so while the ground dries, lets that stabilize, they'll let this go through the dry season, and then it'll compact somewhat. This ground will compact as they're driving equipment over there. They'll compact this with equipment as they put it down, and it'll self-compact over time. And then I'll put the paver down over it after the season.
How long is that stretch of wet, like that flooded area? How like is it?
The canal area?
Yeah.
Probably 1,000 feet, but it was.
Or 500 feet.
It was hundreds of feet.
Okay, so not just a puddle then, yeah. It's like, yeah, okay.
Wasn't just a short.
I was thinking, yeah, okay, very good.
I cannot see that for some reason, so I'm looking at my slides on my screen here. So the schedule is what that has there, and on the top, winter 2023, 2024, they're installing the above grade typical section, which is the one on the bottom there I was referring to, with small drainage pipes placed liberally and strategically. They are buying a lot of pipe and putting it out there, rightly so. And a few areas they're putting some larger pipe, and where I had that big blue blob, they're putting actually a storm catch basin in and taking it across to an existing storm sewer system that's behind some of those houses. And so that it will drain that area much, much better. And this spring of 24, they'll be allowing that subgrade to dry out and stabilize. In this spring and summer, once that subgrade is stable, they'll pave it and they'll get it taken care of. Hopefully it'll work out and we won't have a super wet summer, but time will tell. So let's look at Magnolia Park. Magnolia Park has had its own challenges. These big blue blobs are wetlands that are out there, and the wetlands that are there are actually, for whatever reason, more significant than what the wetland experts had originally delineated out there. What they originally had indicated for, again, that's a little hard to see, but that what they originally had planned on. What they originally planned on for trails were to come around up here, around and down, and put a trail all the way around this pond and this pond here. And that this and this are still the same, but they couldn't really do this because there was too much wetland out here. And they couldn't do quite as much here. This wetland extended up into here. I should have drawn a lot bigger, but they had to kind of pull this out in here to just do solid to really make it reasonable to build like that. And I'll also say, as I went through the records, as I was looking back through our files, there was 4 or 5 different generations of where they had planned to put trails over time. I got confused on what was originally planned through time. That was what I found was it was one of the more recent ones. I think it's one you sent me one put there. But so that's just how they're currently building it. I had to cobble together some different sheets of plan, cut and paste, and put them together. That's why it looks so cartoonish. But the orange is where the sidewalks are, just so you can see what the connectivity is out there. In this case, the bottom going left and right, that's Weatherby Drive. The cul-de-sac there, that's Buckeye Court with the double eyebrows there. And then that's Fairland Drive all the way over to the right. Price Ponds starts there over to the right of the page. And Big Walnut Intermediate School is down there, as you know, south of Buckeye, Big Walnut Intermediate School. So that's what the trails are now, and that will become more important here in a few seconds. Not sure why I had that slide on there. Oh, that's why. Mayor, we'd had some people asking us about that connection to the school, and as I was going through this and looking back at all of my trails, emails and correspondence, I realized they'd never got back to me on that issue, that connection to the school, and I will follow up on that. That is that connection.
I can guide if you want to just talk. I can point it out.
All right, there's the connection, this connection right here that never been built. This is the school parking lot. This is will be now Weatherby, and there's a connection to the parking lot.
Right.
The school right there is never completed. And I pinged them about it. They've never responded to that question.
Okay.
Well, we hope people somehow that. It's a pretty important connection for the school children. Again, so the orange is the connection, and the blue connects the sidewalks to the trails. But then at the top, that was where we're going to try to connect over to the Legacy Trail, which is to the right here over at Price Ponds.
South is down now.
South is down now, yes.
Changes.
BW, yeah, that's BWI top left.
Yeah,
It's
right.
out of the picture.
It is confusing. It's hard to get it on. So there's multiple ways that they were trying to connect over to Legacy Trail. I've numbered them here. This was coming off of, they were connecting down to Eagle Court, which was okay. It didn't connect to it didn't connect to Legacy Trail though. It came over, if they connected over to Eagle Court, the only way they could get to Legacy Trail. Oops, darn it. Only way they could get to Legacy Trail was to come down around. This is Eagle Court, is that bulb that comes out and they'd have to come down, walk down around all the way down to Millstone and come back up and then get the Legacy Trail, which was not reasonable at all. So I told them that didn't work. They had to come up with something else. So I put a big X on that one. And told them they had to come up with something else. So then they came up with what I call the double eagle, which was to come down to the Eagle Court and then come across at the end of the bulb at Eagle Court, which seemed somewhat reasonable, but that didn't work either. The reason that area is yellow is those are critical slopes. They're very steep. They're steeper than 3 to 1, and they couldn't build a slope, or couldn't build a trail on that slope that would be anywhere near a navigable slope for a normal person during severe conditions, let alone somebody that had any sort of disability at all. Plus, they'd have to cross through the wetlands and they'd have to build a bridge regardless. So double legal didn't work either. There's the two areas that didn't work, so that got another X. So we moved on to a wet crossing, which for the same reason doesn't work. It goes across the floodplain and the floodway, not reasonable, not legal. So big X. So now finally we talked about doing a boardwalk or some other type of approach. And so they finally got a green arrow, a green check mark with that. And they came up that pink dot there in the middle is a bridge that they've decided to build across the floodway with a trail similar to what they built on the rest of Legacy with that build up type of trail and a timber bridge, which this again is a little bit more detail on it. And try to zoom in just a little more here. It's not much of a zoom, but Magnolia Park is north there, and Price Ponds is on the south. That connection comes from that purple line is the connection that comes from Magnolia Park, comes down into the Price Ponds area and connects over to Legacy, which is the gray line, and connects with a asphalt trail, and that little dot in the middle is the bridge that crosses the floodplain and floodway. This is zoomed in just a little bit more. You can see the hatched area in the middle is the bridge, and the detail below, which I'll zoom in on a little bit more detail here, is that bridge. I asked them to give me a rendering or a picture of a similar one. I couldn't find anything, so I tried to do my best to put something together. That bridge is it's only about, the handrails are about 6 feet long. The bridge itself is about 10 feet long. It's about 12 foot wide. Just a basic timber bridge. I have not had a structural engineer review it to make sure it's appropriate. I have not had it looked at for handicapped accessibility, but either I or somebody else will do that before we approve it. And in addition to getting your input for any other reason, aesthetics or any other things that you want to talk about. These are, again, engineering details, which just for your interest show that they do seem to have it structurally stable. They have some good solid foundations and header or structural details that seem appropriate. Haven't looked at them in detail, but so that's my rendering, what it looks like from the side. If you're looking at it from the side, that's what you'll see above ground, standard, like a standard timber decking. Treated lumber, again, 10 foot wide on the main part. Those hand ridges that come out 6 feet, but they're at a skew, so they're probably actually about 7.5 feet or so, but it's 6 feet if you go straight. And the rails are about 3.5 feet from the decking of the bridge to the top of the rail. It's slightly higher if you count the knobs on top of the posts there. And like I say, it's about 12 feet wide. At the beginning of the rails going up to the main part of the bridge, it's only about 2.5 feet deep. So it's probably aesthetically pleasing. I think it's a pretty small bridge. It's nothing fantastic, but it is big enough to get over the official floodway of that wetland area and stay dry during excuse me. They've designed it to Delaware County standards for a culvert, which is to stay out of a 5-year return period event. So it would be predicted that the water would go up to the bottom of that bridge once every 5 years. So even beyond that, water would exceed that bridge. You know, a 10-year storm, it may be 4 to 6 inches over that bridge, which they didn't ask me about that. They didn't ask how we wanted it designed.
That was gonna be my main question. I mean, it seems like if you extended the bridge to 20 feet or even 30 feet, I mean, your chances of that flood risk, because I mean, it's a gradual slope, but I mean, think about going on a wooden bridge. This is gonna be wood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the
exactly.
decking and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you're coming into that is downhill from
Right.
either side, not a steep grade, but
Right.
I mean, if you just raise it up a foot or two, you're getting out of that 5-year range. And we've seen 5-year rain events and 25-year rain events in the past year. So, I mean, it's like the chances
Many
of what's
times.
happening
Yeah.
in, you know, the climate and environmentally, like we're exceeding the statistical probability of what those flood predictions are.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure why they didn't ask me what year I would have liked it to be designed for. I would have said 25.
Yeah, that's like what, another 10 foot of bridge. It's not a huge
And
expense.
and
They're
another-
clearing it.
Another
It just, I mean, from the public official standpoint, if we know this information, we're gonna push back on it because we've seen how these things can go wrong.
Yeah.
And we've seen roadways that are like the water's coming up with some of these flood events, so.
And I have not checked his, in fact, I don't even think he gave me calculations. He showed me the results, but I'm not even sure if he used, is it because of, you know, whether you believe in climate change or not, the numbers are hydrology numbers are changing and they're increasing, and whether he's used the older numbers or new numbers, I don't know.
Right.
So he may even be less than a 5-year storm for all I know from what data he used. Or she, I'm not even sure who designed it, but, so I need to check into that, and my opinion is that this isn't sufficient from an engineering perspective, from that perspective of passing the storm event.
I agree with that.
Mhm.
And that was the first thing when I saw these plans, I'm like, it just seems too small. I mean, I know this area. I used to walk back here, like I'm very familiar with it and thinking like 10 foot versus 20 or 30. You only have really one chance to get it right, because the next time it comes around is 10 years and it's on the city, right?
Yeah.
And then we're extending it and
Yeah.
potentially getting into trees that we weren't before.
It's a wood bridge, it's gonna wash away or decay,
Exactly.
or both.
Right.
And yeah, be down at your house. Yeah, all right. But so I'm glad you agree with that, because that without really spending any time with the plans, that was my first.
Me too.
So I don't know there's much sense in spending any more time with it until they redo that.
I mean, I think your number of 25 years seems reasonable based on what I'm seeing on the map.
I know, I will say that it's not uncommon for park areas it tends to be park areas, trails and stuff go in areas that flood. I mean, that's the highest and best use for them. But this is a pedestrian trail. It provides access to school. It really should be more than that. And the least they could have done was ask.
Just so for clarification, what you said, it sounded different. I think probably to different folks. When you said highest and best use parks in areas that flood, I mean, there's a couple of reasons, right? Like you can't build buildings there. But also, I mean, the topography and the natural feel and creeks and streams and all that, I think is what you're getting at, right?
That's exactly,
Okay.
right. It's
Not like we just throw a park where we don't want to have something else, like.
correct. It's the most appropriate use. So good, we're on the same page there. I'm glad to know that. So that is really it. Now, the other thing, Mayor, that you and I and the rest of us have not discussed is if to get here from the main part of at one time, the pointer doesn't work, but that connection this connection that goes right, that one,
Yeah.
the Eagle Cord, that connection was on the phase 2 plans. And it's just gone away. And it never really occurred to me that it just went away. I'm not really sure why that is not still there, other than they may not be able to get over to it. But, we need to have a discussion with Jamie and Joe about that as well, of why there isn't some sort of connection there, because I believe there was an easement between those two homes for that very purpose.
Yeah, there is.
That's the other concern I've got that we need to follow up on.
Yeah. I'd seen the plans are in here, right? In the council packet? When,
We have them, I think, on the OneDrive.
okay, I'd seen them on
Yeah, the detail,
OneDrive.
Yeah.
Actually, those pages weren't called out when I signed that. I know that. When I
Mhm.
signed that in September,
Mm-hmm.
that, I don't think that was the,
No, these are record documents of how they built it, and
right,
it's different from what you and I signed.
that's right. Okay,
Um,
that's a good call out.
So there's a lot of issues behind the scenes that we could talk about here, and if you've got questions and concerns, I'd love to talk about them now, and not necessarily just this trail, these trails, but if there's other issues.
Could I mention one thing real quick that we didn't hit on at the very beginning? That this trail really extends, and you saw it on the orange and purple lines early on, kind of the connectivity, sidewalks and everything. From Cheshire Road, and you may not believe me, but this actually connects into the Ohio to Erie Trail
That's
from a
correct.
plan perspective. So this connects into the easement that runs between Rolling Hills, Price Ponds, Sunbury Meadows. It actually connects into Sunbury Meadows ultimately. There's a large trail there, and then you cross the street into communities at Sunbury. But this is like a major bike multi-use trail network. This is part of it.
You're right, and this is big. What we've gone over today is not small, but it's a small piece of a very big picture.
Right.
When we talk about trails in our community, and we probably ought to, well, Alyssa and I talked about it, mobility community wide, and we probably at least ought to get a mapping of that and kind of just take a good long look at it and talk about where our gaps are and
Right.
and what the critical gaps are that we need to fill over time and how we accomplish that.
Right.
And how we prioritize those, filling those.
Yeah, I always see that as a correspondent document to our thoroughfare plan.
Yeah.
Thoroughfare plan,
Absolutely.
and then like in our master plan, I think they're almost side by side. I think they call it bikeability, walkability plan.
That's a really good point, because we're not, traditionally thoroughfare plans are focused on traffic. Well, we need to focus on pedestrian and,
Right. It goes hand in
foot traffic, or bicycle traffic. So.
Yeah, I have a general question, and Dan, I don't know if it's directed, if this is fair for you to answer or not, but when a developer comes in and says, okay, I'm gonna build Magnolia Park or, whatever, whoever the developer is, are they aware at that time the trails that they're going to need to connect to or build at the time they put their plan together?
But typically goes through and I haven't gone through zoning here in this
Okay,
community, but it typically is part of the development text and the zoning process.
Okay.
When you do that.
Okay, could I just, I'm just trying to seek understanding that, like, why is there sometimes a surprise where it's like, okay, well, this is like, why, I guess, why isn't this part like flushed out during that process versus?
I can probably hit on that because that was part of the approval processes for both of these. So Price Ponds went through a rezoning. I think it was actually probably a 10-year process, and saw 3 different developers and ultimately one that came through. Magnolia Park, kind of similar story, but they were different, but they were right against each other. So they were coming through at different times. This is also prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council taking action saying trails are required in every single development going forward. That just happened a couple of years ago.
Gotcha.
So these were approved prior to that. And I think just, when you get into these planned developments and you're like, listen, we need connectivity. The developer's like, okay, I'll put trails around the pond. Well, that doesn't accomplish from north to south and east to west. And I guess what I'm saying is they were just separate processes. And to your guys' point around like a trail and walkability master plan, I think that's what we need to do to fix it going forward.
Gotcha. Thank you for that insight. Appreciate it.
Dan, I should probably know this, but let me just confirm. I know that you're showing all of the areas where we were talking about having drainage under the trail. There was some talk at one point about putting some boardwalks, not necessarily a bridge like you're describing for the Legacy Trail, but there are some boardwalks here. Are they showing that anymore? Or are they basically saying that we'll be able to accommodate the water issue with that cross section that you were showing earlier?
And that area is mainly where the blob is.
Yeah.
And that, we're putting that storm sewer system. So we're thinking that they can accomplish that by drying
Okay.
it out and putting that cross
Okay.
section in,
Okay, good.
removing the water.
Great.
I'm just gonna say it. I really feel like Pulte in particular on this one, now that they manage both neighborhoods, was really trying to do the cheapest solution, known demand, and not taking our feedback seriously. This has been something that's been talked about for the past 18 months. I mean, in a lot of detail. I think the first time you and I met was on this trail.
That's right.
Before you even kind of were officially working for the city. And it's not acceptable. To John's point, like, we have one time to get this right. If we missed it in the past, so what? Like, here we are now, let's fix it.
It's definitely felt like a moving target. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I feel I am comfortable with Park Enterprises and their understanding of how to build it.
I agree.
Aside from that, I wouldn't disagree with what you're saying.
Okay.
Please let us know how we can help. I mean, we can invite them to a meeting if we want to. I mean, whatever you think the right course of action is. Love to hear their explanation.
I think, we'll see what they say when I ask them about higher end bridge and stuff. So, but I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we're on to Sunbury Estates trees update. Daryl?
All right, so wanted to provide just a couple of updates on projects that are happening, and for Ms. Dreyer, actually, this might be the first you've heard of this, so let me just a little bit of background. In your packet page, what is the page number there? Oh, that voice.
25.
Packet page 25, hard to see,
It's
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's in the upper right-hand corner.
It'll be 25, but I don't think.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's hidden in there.
Yeah, it's this one right there.
Yep. Thank you.
So for a while, the Services Committee has been talking about how to address some sidewalk and tree issues in the community. The map that you see, basically the trees are causing the sidewalks to heave. And so last year, after a public engagement process with the community, basically landed on the notion that we were going to focus on the trees that have the red dots on here now. So 25 to 30-ish trees. We did say we would take another survey this spring and to kind of hone in on the number of trees that would be replaced. So these are all maple trees. Again, the plan is to eliminate the tree, replace it with a new tree in the tree lawn, stay out of the property owner's front yard, and then have a concrete company come in and replace the sidewalk panels that are heaving next to that. So what I wanted to share with this group is that since our last discussion, we have gone out and solicited bids from tree companies to do the tree removal work. We do have 3 proposals from tree companies, and I think we got a pretty strong bid on one of them. So I think we're feeling pretty good about at least the tree company that we would ultimately land on to do the work. And they have we asked them to bid for removal of the tree, grinding the stump, and then there's a charge for then removing the clippings. So there'll be some turf work that has to be done, kind of put some topsoil back in, grass seed, whatever the case might be. That's not in their bid, but that's, like I said, those other 3 items are in the bid. We have prepared a scope of work for the concrete contractors, and that is currently out at the moment. We're trying to get pricing on that, so we don't have that piece of it yet. But I would expect to have that relatively soon. So, there's like I said, so the other thing we have to do, one is we agreed we would do one more survey to identify the trees that are actually on the list, the final list. We would notify the property owners that their tree is on the list. We'll paint the tree, mark the tree in some way so that visually they can see that as well. And so before we do any kind of tree removal or concrete repair work or sidewalk repair work. That said, that's not likely to all happen until after the trees have leafed out. So that's one of the questions I would like to ask the arborist, if maybe we wait until the leaves have dropped in the fall to maybe do that. So maybe we start with the concrete work. Any roots that are under the sidewalk at that point are cut out. Which is obviously going to be the beginning of the end for that particular tree. But anyway, so I still want to work through that again with the assistance of the arborist to just make sure we've got that timed up properly. But I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of where we are at this particular point. We are still moving forward. We did budget for this project in 2024. So we anticipate that by the end of the calendar year, these trees will be addressed. And just for your information, Molly, the plan at that point was to stop. We did hear back from the community that they weren't interested in us going any further in terms of removing trees with sidewalks that have they're heaving less than 2 inches. We did have a couple of property owners who had identified that they would like the tree removed, even though they may not be at 2 inches. We said we would accommodate those. So anybody who came forward. So like I said, we have those names identified. We don't have a lot. Like I said, it may be 2 at the most. So
Are they in the 28, the opt-ins?
now that's in addition to the
Okay.
ones that are on here. Yeah.
And we're gonna allow for more opt-ins?
Yeah,
I think what we were thinking was as people saw them start to
Right.
get removed, they might be
Right.
more inclined to opt in.
Yeah, we kind of, the plan was we would leave it open through the end of the calendar year. So anybody, yes, that sees this happening and identifies that they would like the tree preemptively removed, that we would accommodate them. So,
I may have missed this. Did you say there also is going to be a replacement or no? Is that up to the?
yeah, I mean, that, our plan was to replace the tree.
Okay,
So, I mean, we'll replace it with a different
Right,
species. But yes, we'll replace the tree in the, in the tree lawn. I mean, obviously not exactly in the same location. It ends up being slightly different. So, but yes, that's the plan.
Be happy to see trees coming out there for sure. It's been a long road for that.
It's been a while, so.
All right, on to the municipal and police building renovations.
So I had indicated I would keep you up to date on some recent reports that we're getting on our municipal facilities project. So I know most, if not all, I think in this group have gone through the buildings. So I won't belabor the point too much, except to say this. So what you've got in the packet beginning up at page 26, that's gives you an update on where things stand. For the most part, the framing is in, the door frames are starting to go in, the electrical connections are being made over at the police department. The concrete work to the rear of the municipal building has been done, so they'll be able to reset the generator and the air conditioning units back there. They've started to install the insulation in the police building. The one thing that is holding us up a little bit at this point is we do need to get the building inspector back to look at some of the framing. So that's slowed down the installation of the drywall and some of the insulation. So, we'll see how that affects the overall schedule, but there's been no change yet from the contractor on the overall schedule. But, I wouldn't be completely surprised if they did come back and say that they needed just a little bit more time because of the building inspection issue. You also will see on page 27, the beginnings of the footers or the piers that will support the carport over at the police department. We did modify this plan a little bit early on to add an additional bay. So this accommodates that additional bay for our police department. So that is moving along as well. We do have a gas line issue that we are sorting through, and I think we almost have the solution on that. So we'll get that out of the way if there are any future issues. And those might be the highlights in terms of where the building is. The one other thing I wanted to note is we did have an emergency sewer repair issue come up as it relates to the municipal building. So it's not directly related to the renovation, but probably showed itself as a result of the renovation and other work that's going on down here. So we have had to the lateral line, where the lateral line connects into the main sewer, the city's main line, that connection had collapsed. And so it's basically blocking the free flow of sewer. So we've, with the help of our service team and our wastewater team, we did have to engage a contractor as well, but we have replaced that connection, improved that connection, added a blowout or clean out valve over for the municipal building, and added a manhole over where the connection is to the city main line. So it really is a long-term improvement that's going to help not only this building, but the other buildings, the other commercial buildings that are on that side of the square as well. So that is, again, just something that's come up and we've been able to accommodate, and we continue to march forward. So There you go. Those are the big updates.
You. We're on to other updates. So, Safe Streets for All was the first I've got on the list. Do we have updates for
Yeah,
that?
and these would just be quick. So Safe Streets for All, this is the grant agreement we have with the Federal Highway Administration. The CT Consultants staff participated in a conference call with the Federal Highway Administration last week. When I was at the conference, I think we've got a clear guidance in terms of how to proceed with the contract. We have the contract at this point. It's going through legal review. But assuming we can get through that at a pretty quick stage or pretty quick process, we should be beginning to undertake the traffic safety study issues beginning in the May, June-ish timeframe. So, next 60 days, I guess we should be starting the study portion of the grant project. The next one, stormwater management legislation, Dan just sent to me today, but so I didn't necessarily have any updates here, but we do think, who updated it? Was that the
EPA.
So the EPA has updated the manual written, well, you're explaining, you know better than I.
Part of the legislation is dependent upon components of the rainwater and land development manual, which was initially written by Department of Natural Resources, taken over by the Ohio EPA. The Ohio EPA is now the god of the rainwater and land development. Ooh, and they're sorry, I'm breaking your furniture. That's the last they're updating it. And I'm not sure what impact those updates will have on our legislation. I'm sure they'll be good, but other than they'll make some changes. And so it'll probably slow us down just a little bit, but we'll make do. We'll still get her done.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have this legislation to council through the committee process. I would say we'll have it in 90 days. We'll have it to you in 90
Or
days.
sooner.
If that's what, no later than 90 days.
Yeah.
No later than that. So, and I know we've talked about stormwater a lot, so this is just one of the things that has been our list. So. And then comprehensive and thoroughfare planning. I don't know that we have much to report that's new that you haven't already heard on this. So, but it's an ongoing issue. I just keep it on the agenda if there's an issue. So I think those are the updates unless there are questions from the committee on any item that's either that's on the list or on your mind.
Any questions for staff?
I'm in agreement with everything. How about that?
That makes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second by Ms. Strayer. Roll call?
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Ms. Strayer,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
4 yeas, we are adjourned.
Thank you.